In the early 1940s, millions of families were suddenly asked to feed themselves and their neighbours under rationing, labour shortages, fuel limits and fertilizer scarcity. Commercial nitrogen and phosphate supplies were redirected to explosives and military production. Imported minerals were cut off. Factory-made inputs became rare or unavailable. Yet, despite all this, backyard gardens, small farms and community plots were producing record yields. Government reports from the period show that Victory Gardens supplied nearly 40% of America's fresh vegetables by 1944. That kind of output did not come from miracle chemicals. It came from a forgotten system built around one overlooked ingredient that modern agriculture largely abandoned: fully fermented, composted manure and plant waste, enriched through biological activation. This was not raw manure. It was not casual compost. It was a carefully managed living fertilizer that rebuilt soil instead of feeding plants temporarily. And it changed everything. During World War II, agricultural extension offices promoted what they called hot composting with biological starters. Farmers and gardeners combined animal manure, kitchen scraps, crop residues, leaves, wood ash and soil microbes into layered piles that were turned on schedule and allowed to ferment under controlled moisture. These piles reached internal temperatures of 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat killed pathogens and weed seeds while preserving beneficial bacteria and fungi. Over 6 to 8 weeks, the material transformed into a dark, crumbly, nutrient-dense soil amendment loaded with microbial life. Unlike synthetic fertilizer, which delivers isolated nutrients that quickly wash away, this living compost created a nutrient factory inside the soil. Microbes converted locked minerals into plant-available forms. Fungi extended root systems. Organic matter held water and oxygen. Crops did not just grow faster. They grew deeper, stronger and more resistant to disease. Farmers reported yield increases of 2 to 3 times compared to unfertilized plots, even under wartime shortages. After 1945, chemical fertilizer factories that had produced explosives and military chemicals were converted into agricultural suppliers. Nitrogen plants that once made bombs now made ammonium nitrate. Phosphate processors shifted from shells to soil amendments. Corporations needed permanent customers, you see. Living compost systems were decentralized. Anyone could make them. They required labour but little money. They produced soil fertility that lasted years. That did not fit the post-war business model. Chemical fertilizers offered speed, convenience and dependency. Crops responded quickly. Farmers could apply and forget. Over time, however, soil biology collapsed. Organic matter declined. Fields required more and more input to maintain the same yields. By the 1960s, extension programs had largely stopped teaching biological compost systems. They were labelled old-fashioned. Manuals disappeared. Generational knowledge faded. The true secret was not manure. It was microbial inoculation. Wartime composters routinely added small amounts of forest soil, leaf mould, worm castings and aged compost to new piles. These materials contained diverse bacteria, fungi and protozoa. When combined with heat and moisture, they multiplied explosively. This created what modern soil scientists now call a complete soil food web. Nutrients were stored in living organisms and released slowly as plants demanded them. Without microbes, fertilizer is like dumping sugar on a starving man. With microbes, soil becomes a self-feeding system. Start by selecting a shaded location with good drainage. Build a pile at least 3 feet high and 3 feet wide. Smaller piles will not heat properly. Begin with a 6-inch layer of dry carbon material such as leaves, straw or shredded cardboard. Add a 3-inch layer of manure or kitchen scraps. Sprinkle a thin layer of garden soil or finished compost. Lightly moisten. Repeat until the pile reaches full height. Insert a metal rod into the centre. After 3 days, remove it and feel it. If it is hot to the touch, fermentation has begun. Turn the pile every 7 days, moving outer material inward. Maintain moisture at the level of a wrung-out sponge. After about 6 to 8 weeks, the compost will be ready. It should, smell earthy, not sour. Just apply about 2 inches to your garden beds in the fall or early spring, and then lightly work it into the topsoil. Gardeners who follow this system consistently report stronger plants, fewer pests, and, higher yields within just 1 season. Chemical fertilizer feeds crops, but biological compost, it feeds the land. Soils managed with living compost, they accumulate organic matter year after year. They retain water during drought, drain well in floods, and resist erosion. These soils also buffer temperature extremes and quite naturally suppress pathogens. During the Second World War, this kind of stability really was a matter of survival. Families could, rely on their harvests even when supply lines were disrupted. Nowadays, it gives us independence from those unpredictable fertilizer prices, shortages, and, the environmental damage that comes with them. This isn't just a case of looking back with nostalgia. What we're talking about here is systems engineering, except we're using biology instead of, say, factories. Recent studies coming out of universities and soil institutes show that microbially active compost can actually increase nutrient uptake by up to 200%. Root systems, they expand by 30 to 50%, and honestly, crop resilience improves dramatically. In other words, wartime farmers were practicing advanced soil science decades before it even had a name. They did not need laboratories, They learned by necessity. Every generation inherits tools from the past. Some are lost because, they're inconvenient. Others are buried because they're just too effective. This compost system empowered families, reduced dependence, and honestly created abundance from waste. It threatened business models built on artificial scarcity. That is why it faded. And really, that is why it matters now. If you study World War II agriculture closely, one lesson appears again and again. When people understood their soil, they controlled their future. This so-called secret ingredient was never secret. It was patience, biology, and respect for natural systems. It worked then, it works now, and it will work long after chemical inputs fail. If this kind of forgotten knowledge matters to you, If you believe resilience comes from understanding rather than buying, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to the channel for more real history, real skills, and real systems that built self-reliance in the hardest times. And please, share this video with anyone who cares about growing food that lasts.